right, what's up, everybody?
Toby.
Hey.
How you guys doing?
We are good.
Now.
We are good.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Man, what a crazy 24 hours, or almost 24 hours. Huh?
Yeah, it's been pretty wild, man. I'll tell you.
Man, it's been amazing watching you guys. First of all, my hat is off to you. Amazing work that you guys have done putting this together, and I can't believe you've been going strong for this long. I know that there were some breaks, for some of you. I saw some of you disappear here and there throughout the stream, but you really pulled it together, and you've been going strong this whole time. How are you guys feeling?
Strong as a relative.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's interesting, Todd. You're the only guy who didn't take a break, right? A little break. But no, actually, I kind of feel like I got a second wind right now. I don't know.
I got a third win.
The third wind
I'm
came
on
from
pure adrenaline.
Yeah. Todd was literally riding his bike, Toby, between sessions. He was outside riding his bike. You know the big circle here at DS? So you just see him outside, riding his bike around there. So it's been pretty wild.
Hot lap in the parking lot.
And that's how you keep it going.
Couple minutes after
That's
midnight.
right. You gotta keep the blood pumping.
What about
how
diet?
are you guys?
What are you guys doing for diet as far as strategy for this 24-hour marathon? Do you guys have any little tricks that you end up using?
You know, I wanted to bring that up yesterday. Like, what has our food intake been like since we've been here? And I'll say, like, from a hospitality standpoint, we've been well taken care of. Yeah. We've had Panera
like how many
delivered
pizzas have you eaten
mornings.
by now?
That was the point I wanted to get to. 0 pizza. We didn't have any pizza delivered.
Wow.
Although we probably should have.
That's sacrilege.
Yeah. It is, but if we ate a big carb, pizza, I think we'd all probably just pass out on the desk.
Yeah.
We all kind of felt like the meals were just a little bit too close together. Yeah. I'm not sure I could eat yet.
Yeah. Yep.
And plus, I've always maintained, if I had it to do all over again, it would have been steak and lobster at that first user group meeting and not Little Caesar's pizza. So
set the bar a little higher.
Yeah.
That's the reputation.
Just to create the proper tradition. Yeah.
Nice.
Did you guys ever imagine, especially you guys who have been running the users groups for, so many years now, that eventually you would take on a challenge like this? Like, was this ever in your roadmap? I know that you said that it only really came up when someone challenged Cam, it said like largest users group meeting. I think maybe the longest users group meeting. But was there ever, anything before that you thought about, kind of rolling into this where you were like, we should do one that goes for 24 hours?
Especially live streamed from the headquarters.
Yeah, no. Never.
It's expanded every year, but a lot of that's just been like evolving because, when they jumped to 2 presenters, it was, people were struggling with time zones. So if we do 2 presenters,
we can give them options.
Yeah.
And even at 2, we kind of thought we were going a little crazy.
Yeah.
We mentioned, would it be a good idea to put a 3rd presentation in the middle of the country and kind of get 3 going? And oh God, that sounds like a lot of work.
That sounds complicated.
We were sweating so much about that first two presenter show a couple of years ago. And
yeah, I don't know how we got
everything's relative.
yeah.
Right.
How did it end up working out? Like after you did the first one with two presenters doing 2 different time zones, did you get any feedback from people? They liked that?
They did.
I thought it went really well.
Yeah, they liked it. Well,
it made it easier to attend.
Yeah, you're always going to get little suggestions on how to make it better next time, and I think we did that. And for SLUGME6, we even improved a little bit
2
on
people
4.
worked because again we did it the next year and. Well, it just kind of escalated from there, I guess.
Well, that escalated.
It sure did escalate up to what we just witnessed the past 24 hours, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So I guess that's a good segue into the presentation that we're doing now, which I know is a little bit different from a lot of the other presentations. I mean, we've been watching some great tips and tricks. We've been learning about everything from sheet metal to file management, PDM to simulation. We've really run the whole gambit of a lot of different topics in SolidWorks, and it's hard to believe, but I think I can say pretty easily that we still haven't covered everything that's in SolidWorks, right? The depth of SolidWorks, that well goes so deep that we could probably go for another 24 or 48 or 72 hours and still not cover every topic.
Yeah, easily.
But the point of my presentation today, why I'm on here, is to just kind of go back through and talk about some of the the key presentations that we had when it came to designing the car itself. We've been calling these the Keystone presentations over the past 24 hours. And I'd love for you guys to all just kind of stay on and give me your thoughts. A lot of this has been you guys handing it off to the presenters, but I think you all four of you bring so much knowledge to this space, and you were all there watching these as well. So maybe we can kind of talk through together what we all enjoyed about these presentations. And I think that, it all kind of kicked off with Jason Poole talking about his ideas for what the shape of this car should be and kind of what the design style is going to be. And so I'd love to invite Jason up as well to join us here in this conversation. So maybe, Dan and Todd, Eric and Cam and Jason and we can all just kind of talk a little bit about what the thought process was going into this. And I guess that maybe I would just start with a question for you, Jason, which is, I know you've done a lot of industrial design in the past, but when it comes to a shape like this vehicle, what actually goes into designing this? Like if I look at something like this, I'm a surfacing guy, coming from SolidWorks, traditional SolidWorks surfacing. So for me, I'm going to have kind of a general workflow in mind, but it definitely wasn't where I did my industry trade. I was a lot more in manufacturing, particularly sheet metal and prototype design. So this is definitely outside of my space of kind of doing this over and over and over again. So as someone who has done, designs like this over and over and over again, there's a common workflow that you fall into, a common kind of like, I always generally do this, that sets me up for this, and then that sets me up for the final product. Maybe you could just take us through a little bit of your thought process when it comes to doing industrial design like this.
Sure. Each project that I do, it's different. There really isn't a recipe, to follow in order all the way through. But something like this, typically we'll start with some loose conceptual sketches, just pencil, paper, sometimes on the Wacom, digitally, and a lot of reference material to see what, get my proportions just right and things like that.
When you say the Wacom, that's a digital tablet, right? You're using a stylus and you're actually drawing with that stylus?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
So before, like, the most complex surface that I would do would have been like a gas tank, and it would have been done with a bunch of loft sections and guide curves and whatnot, and it would have taken a long time and been complicated, and, I've been there and I've done that through SolidWorks, but to take on a car with this much complex organic shapes and curves, I wouldn't have been comfortable doing that just with my old tool sets. So using 3D Sculptor X-Shape, I was able to jump in and just start pushing and pulling this box and holding C2 surface continuity and actually creating something. So for me, it was like, it was a magical journey to be on this. And one thing that really resonates besides the tools is the people that I got to take this journey with, I at Choppers and in my business, I kind of stay in my own lane, my own ecosystem, and I just focus on what I need to do. And what was really great about this is I was part of a team of super, super awesome people and very well educated. And these guys, they know what's going on with this software and how to make it really dance. So I was a spectator. I was a student again, and it took me back 20 years to, the first time I saw software, the first time I'm like, wow, look at that. This is how video games are made. This is how manufacturing is done. This is how the world creates stuff, And so working with Jordan and Andy and Omar and Shreyas, it was just like, I was a kid again, man. I was a kid in a candy store, and it was just so cool to have, that the access to that powerful software and develop something, that I've always been passionate about, cars and automobiles and anything motorsports and racing. It's like I've been a fine line between art and gearhead my whole life,
So you're saying that you're in the past, you've done design of, like, for example, gas tanks, and then you were exposed to this new tool, sub-D modeling, X-Shape in 3D Experience. What was the learning curve like for you? And did you have any help along the way to kind of get you a little bit deeper into the software and learn some of the nuances?
Sure. I mean, definitely had some help along the way. Justin Burton was there to help navigate the 3D platform for me at the beginning. And he shined some light on it, but mostly it was, take it and run. There's no magic webinar. There's nothing you can really do. You have to it's like when you learn to swim, man, at one point you have to jump in the deep end and you have to go for it. And that's what I did. But when I got there, I realized the only problem was my own fear, thinking I couldn't do it, or maybe I won't like it. But once I got there and I was in it, it was intuitive. I was like, okay, well, what if I right click here? What if I just double click this edge? It does, it selects the whole end, So it was things like that I've learned over the years that it rolled right into X shape. And it was just like, for me, it was a magical experience. It was like, there were things right where I needed it to be. And there was a couple of moments where I thought something, and I put the feedback into the team. And then what's cool about the software is it's constantly getting updated and it's alive. So it gets fixed, and, because there's nothing in the world that's 100% perfect.
So you're saying you as an end user, you were able to submit essentially enhancement requests, and in the short period of time you've been using the software, you've already seen some of those enhancements land in the software?
Absolutely. And it used to be, back in the day, it used to be, well, you got to wait for the new version. You got to wait for this or that. And now with it just being, the platform, it's all online, it's all live, and you have some of the most talented individuals in the world creating the software. You know what I mean? I'm mind blown how it all comes together, but I appreciate that there's a lot of really smarter people than me out there that are putting it together, because ultimately it's for the end user. Someone like myself that is designing and creating, and I need the software. You know what I mean? And it's so refreshing to see it.
So during your Keystone session, we were able to witness you, putting this together, manipulating the software, push pulling, sub-D modeling. One question that I had, maybe potential reservation that I've heard from people is that they're concerned that if they use a sub-D modeler, it's going to be difficult to then get that geometry into SolidWorks to make it, usable in SolidWorks, where they're a little more comfortable maybe doing assemblies or doing, whatever it is they're doing. They're used to that tool. Is that a legitimate concern, or what's that process look like to go from X shape back down into a usable SolidWorks model?
And yeah, that's a great point, because I was super concerned about that, because, a great part of my career has been utilizing SolidWorks to make different components and accomplish all my tasks. So I always need that, you know what I mean? I need SolidWorks. And so I was a little concerned about that at first, but the file opened right up inside SolidWorks and it was watertight. And I remember the first moment that I opened like a car body inside SolidWorks from X shape, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And right away,
well, and compared to maybe like getting have you ever gotten an imported car body from a different CAD software? It comes in as like a surface, it errors everywhere, and you have to patch stuff together.
Yeah.
Was it
like the STL car? Yeah.
Yeah. Was it anything like that, or was it just basically you just had a solid body?
Man, it was the computer didn't miss a beat. It was as smooth as if I just created a surface loft afterwards. You know what I mean? It was watertight. It was beautiful. And then I could jump right into all the tool sets, all my shortcuts. Like I use the keyboard and I got a mouse going one way. And I use a trackball actually with my left foot while I model. And it's crazy. It's crazy. It's super cool. But I was able to use all my tools and, from my surface cuts, my offset lofts, and create the headlights real quick, and it all knitted together and was one solid body. And I was like, I made my cut section where the cockpit's gonna open, and nice. more engineering stuff that I do inside of SolidWorks. So for me,
it kind of feels like cheating, right, Jason? Like when you open it up the first time in SolidWorks, you're like, I have this awesome shape and I didn't do a bit of surface modeling to get here. Like everything that you see on the screen right now, the only SolidWorks features are like the wheel wells, the cutouts for the wheels, the windshield, and that little split line for the hood entry.
Right. Yep. And then the headlights, and then the tail drift, those sections on the tail drift I made there. But yeah, I kept the first time I opened, an X-shaped file in SolidWorks connected, I kept like looking over my shoulder like, this is has got to be too good to be true, right? I kept waiting for like something to air out or like, no. And I just kept working. And at the end of it, I was like, wow, I can get Andy's wheel and I can just drag it in. And now I got a little assembly within this. And I had his tread pattern and I just dropped it right in. So super powerful stuff, man. And what an experience just to be here. And I want to say that, Eric Beatty, he's the one that, got my attention on this like almost a year ago. And it seemed really far-fetched. And I'm like, well, I got thinking about, I'm like, can I model a car? Yeah, well, maybe I can, And so I just really started, pushing, car models and stuff, because to me, as a designer, like a car body was like the pinnacle, like the climate, like this is it, you can do a car body, you can do anything, and now that I've done that, I feel really good about it, but it's like, now it's really endless.
So wait, so you're saying that even with, with all your design experience, a year ago, you had never designed a car, and now today, this like masterpiece is what you put together?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've drawn them, stuff like that. I've done character modeling and, weird organic stuff before, but nothing that was like as defined as an entire car body, something that I can show people and be like, hey, this is an actual car, check it out.
I'd say that's pretty good for your first attempt, man. Yeah, that thing looks pretty slick.
Well done, indeed. Well, listen, I know, Jason, you got very limited time this morning. I want to thank you so much for, all the time that you've put into this project, for doing the Keystone. Before you go, I just wanted to open it up to the guys who are in the studio. If you guys, Dan, Cam, Todd, Eric, if you guys have any questions for Jason, or if you want to say anything to him. And while you're doing that, I also want to let the chat know, if you have any questions or anything you want to say to Jason, let me know, and we'll be sure to let him know that as well. But I'll turn it over to you guys. Dan, you and the crew have any questions or comments or anything you want to say to Jason?
I just want to jump right out and say that violently smashing clay together has been in my head since you said it earlier today.
Cam, I think your mic might be like in your shirt a little too much. It's getting real muffled there.
I heard.
Don't mind repeating that question.
Yeah. So Cam, like why I say that about X shape. So what I said is it's violently accurate, and you can just go for it, because traditionally speaking, when you get into a CAD software, it feels very engineer driven. It's very you have a process and you have to draw, and you start with like a sketch and you connect the sketch. Is it tangent? Is it, all these different, vocab that goes into it, and you're more focused. With X shape, I could just kind of jam and just start with the box and just like wham, and you grab these vertices and you just throw them to the other side.
Yeah.
Who cares? You got Control Z, So sometimes you just gotta, like I say, jump into the deep end. And with X shape, that's what it feels like. You just run with it, So it's very violent but very accurate.
I love it. You're showing us how we should just jump in and do it. Yeah, I love that.
I think all three of your sessions, from Jason to Andy to Jordan, we had such key takeaways about each one, and I can't wait to talk about Andy's and Jordan's, because they were funny, because they kind of got punchy as the night went on. Like they started to get more casual. But Jason, for yours, we were kind of watching like Andy and Jordan just trying to keep you under control. Like you were modeling so fast and creating like crazy geometry, like you said, using a trackball with your foot or something. Toby just said, suddenly there was like this masterpiece on the screen, and it's like, did you just create a car? Like, did that just happen that quickly?
In minutes.
And man, it was just a pleasure to watch it, man. And I think I speak for all of us up here when we just want to thank you for being a part of it. It was great, man.
Jason, I just want to say thank you so incredibly much for becoming a part of this. I mean, we had bounced around the idea once we knew that you were going to be a SolidWorks industrial design brand champion. And we were like, what do you think about approaching Jason Poole?
Do you think he'd be willing?
Do you think he'd be willing? I mean, and when I looked at my Twitter feed one day and I saw Jason Poole follows you, and I'm like, I went
Yeah,
instantly
for sure.
into fanboy mode. It's just like, I mean, I was sending screenshots
I
to
got the
Todd, to
message.
Cam, to just about
Jordan is
everybody.
following
My
me.
ex-wife, everyone. And I was like, and then you like out of the blue contact me, hey, let's get together. Sucha Jane says, I need to chat with you and everything. And I was like, oh guys, this is the perfect opportunity. We had already conceived this crazy idea. Let's see if we can get Jason on board. And you didn't hesitate at all. You were like, yeah, I'm in. I'll do it.
You know why, Eric? Because you know what? This is where I belong. Like I have more friends in SLUGME than I have in real life. Okay, so it's like this is where it's at because I've been there. I've had a lot of responsibilities put on me, and I had to come up with solutions. And there's been times where I've resorted to YouTube videos, and there's this one guy that's always there just pounding away, and that's Toby. So like I knew Toby before I knew probably anyone, and Toby, thank you for that, because I learned a lot along the way just by picking up videos that you put out there. And I think that's so important for the next generation of designers and engineers, is to have content for them to go out there and just know that it's a different world now. You can get out there and you can find that content and you can learn from it, and you can get yourself in a better position. So I think, what SLUGME ultimately does is it just benefits so many people. So I really believe in it, and I'm just proud to be able to, be part of this and work with Andy and Jordan and do this killer car with the team,
Well, that's awesome. Thanks a lot for the kind words. And, and just to kind of follow up on that, I know that a lot of those presentations that I've done, it's always, this crew of people that are out there in the chat encouraging more and more people to get involved. And that's really what it's all about. And I think it's a perfect way to start out our recap of the SLUGME super event, the longest SLUGME ever. And so I want to say thank you so much, Jason. Thank you for joining us. And, Dan, to your point, you said you can't wait to start talking to Andy and Jordan. So I think that wait is over, and we're going to move on now and talk to Andy about the wheels, tires, patterns design, and maybe we can get some insight from Jordan on this one as well. Really appreciate you guys joining us here. What's up? How you doing? And of course, in the chat, if anybody has any questions in the chat, let us know. Jason, you can see there's a lot of good feedback there for you in the chat as well. But Andy,
one more thing before Jason goes is happy birthday to your boy today. Tell him all of SLUGME send him wishes.
Nice.
Maxton is 7, and we're orchestrating a Minecraft birthday themed party here.
Nice.
So, we're heavy into that, and I think that's a great thing for kids to be able to, at least they're modeling and doing something, Like I grew up playing Mortal Kombat, and I don't think that did anything, but at least with Minecraft,
maybe it had something to do with the violent modeling.
Yeah, violent smashing.
Finish it.
Get over here.
Smashing clay.
Mortal Kombat. So yeah, I got that going on today, and really looking forward to it. But I will check out the chat here. Is that on YouTube? I'll jump on YouTube.
Yep, right over on the YouTube. You can check it out.
All right,
and I'm Dragon Slayer 69 on Minecraft. So if you want to look me up, maybe we can get into a server together.
Check out Toby's other channel, which is all Minecraft videos.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Love you all.
Thank you,
I'll see you
Thanks,
soon.
Jason.
In Atlanta.
Awesome job.
Okay.
Yeah.
In real life. Atlanta. Okay. Bye. Thank you.
Later.
So Jason did a great job of, both kicking off this session today, but also kicking off the entire SLUGME. And then we moved into our next Keystone session, which is my good friend, Andy Barnes. How are you doing today, Andy?
I'm doing great, Toby. I don't know if you made this PowerPoint template or if Jordan did, but bravo on the picture selection.
Thank you. I will take full credit for this PowerPoint, but I did not make it. Actually, it was Jordan. Just wanted to hang that out there to see his face.
Well, I want to shout out to Toby's YouTube channel as well. Woo-hoo. So we'll just shamelessly plug everything.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, man. This was a lot of fun. What happened for me was I was doing my normal job, and then all of a sudden I get a message on chat, and I think it was Jordan, was like, hey, we're talking to some guys from SLUGME. They were wondering if we were wondering if maybe you could make a pattern in like 3D pattern shape creator on something. And I was like, sure. And then I like hop into this meeting and there's like 12 people and they're like, so we're building a car from scratch. And what did I just get into right now? Are you kidding me? But it actually ended up being super, super fun. And I learned a ton of stuff because this is like new software for me too, you know? So I learned how to do a bunch of things that I hadn't tried, which was super fun. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this wheel design, I gotta say, it completely blew me away as well. I mean, what was your thought process going into this? I know that you've got, I mean, you, Andy, you are a master SolidWorks user across the board. I've seen you run the full gambit of all the SolidWorks tools, and every time I learn something from you, and every time I'm impressed. And you know, people think that I know all these little tips and tricks, but really all I do is I just pick your brain one afternoon, and then that night I go home and I make a video, and it's all just stuff that I just learned from you that afternoon. So you're truly the secret source of all this great knowledge. But
it helps that he's not on social media. You could have just kept that scheme going for as long as you wanted, Toby.
I always end up outing myself. So when it came to these wheels, I mean, what was kind of your thought process going into these? You know, like you said, you're caught a little bit off guard, but then you pulled yourself together. You were like, okay, this is what we're doing. What can I do to help? How did the wheel come from, you know, just an idea in your brain to actually, you know, full SolidWorks 3D model?
Well, I got some inspiration from just like looking at a bunch of different tread patterns. And like I was looking for something that wouldn't be that easy to do inside of SolidWorks, because there's a ton of tire companies that use SolidWorks to design their treads. You know, you can totally do it if you have like a straight up like repeating pattern, you know, that goes around the whole thing. It's not like an impossible thing to do. So I was like, okay, how can I like add value to this? You know, why would you need to use this other tool? And I started to find some tread patterns that were like really like asymmetric, and just like wild and out there. And then actually I went and threw up a couple ideas on like an internal like swim community post, like a message board on 3D Experience that we have with some of the internal people. And I think it was Todd and Eric started throwing some pictures back like, hey, did you see this new, I think there was like I think there might've been like a Formula 1 race that was recently like in the rain, and some tire company, I think it was Firestone, released like their new like rain tire, like right at the same time. And I was just like, wow, this stuff is nuts. Like there's no way I can do that. Right. But then I was like, let me try. Right. So that's kind of where I got the inspiration. That, and like, there was like a gravel tire. I like originally was like, what the heck kind of tire is this? And apparently it was actually for driving in gravel, which is kind of cool. So
what was unique about the gravel tire?
The fact that it was two completely different looking treads. It was like, it was like two tires and then somebody like photoshopped them together. Like that's what it looked like, you know. And I to be completely honest, I never like dug into like, why is this, you know, what is the physics behind it? Which is,
I was just gonna ask that. Like,
yeah, like I'm sure like Omar and Shreyas immediately would have like, you know, figured out like, oh well, you know, at approximately 68 miles per hour, gravel acts as a fluid, and like they have some reason why that works. But I was just like, this looks super cool. Let's try and make it.
Yeah. And then was that like a similar? Was there like a similar reason that you took on the tread that you ended up ultimately going with? It was like in the chat, Eric is saying it seems like the theme of SLUGME for all the Keystones at least was challenge accepted. And was that kind of how you felt when you saw, you know, the image of the tread that you ultimately went with?
Yeah, pretty much. I was trying to make it as wild as possible. And then I was like, a few days ago, I was like messaging Jordan and I'm like, I made it too complex. I can't do this live. Like there's just like it's just so much going on that like the rebuild time's like 4 minutes. What am I gonna do? So that's what we came up with, doing the pattern on the seat. and the spinner as well. So
yeah, I was
I
gonna
like
ask
how you say we came up with it. I just
yeah.
a lot of these sessions that Andy and I go through are like quick little meetups, virtual meetups. And Andy's like, I got this problem. I'm like, okay. And then he shows it to me and then he solves it and then he moves on. And I'm just there. It's like therapeutic. I'm just there to talk to him about stuff while he figures it out.
Yeah. And then he thanks you at the end, right?
Yes, and then he includes me in the solution, but I appreciate it.
Toby's been my therapist as well.
Yeah, I've
We're
had
doing
those
shows
conversations with
together.
Andy. Andy solved some challenge, geometry challenge that I would have never been able to come up with. And then he's like, thanks a lot, man. Like, this was great. I couldn't have done this without you. I'm like, no problem, bro. So I saw that you guys together also did the seat pattern, and that when you were working on the seat pattern, you were using a tool in 3D Experience that allowed you to kind of create bridges that had different rules between them. What's the name of that app?
Yeah, that is so the app is called X Generative Design, and that's
X Generative Design.
Yeah, like we say like X Shape, X Generative Design, X Design. They're all browser-based CAD modeling tools.
And so
the 3D Experience platform.
Is that essentially like you create rules and then the rules drive the pattern?
Yeah, you could think of it that way. Like the term that people use, like because there's other applications that do the same thing, right? Just like there's other CAD modelers for parametric modeling too, right? Like the term instead of parametric model is computational design. So if you like type that in, you'll find there's a bunch of things that do this, and it's a bunch of nodes that drive other nodes, and like it's just a completely different style of design because of the way that it's built, right? Like I was kind of telling Jordan when we were doing a live stream, like everything all exists. Like I was thinking about this actually earlier today, how like in SolidWorks you create a block and then you put a hole in the block and then you put a fillet on the block. There's 3 points in time where that's a different body. But if you needed to reference the original body later in the tree, the only way to do that is to basically go roll back in the tree, make a copy of that body that doesn't get changed so you can use it later on. But in computational design, all of the nodes always exist. So like you can go back and reference any part at any point in the design later on. And like so you get like a web rather than like a tree, right? In SolidWorks, we'd have like the feature tree, which has branches. In this, you get a web that can then circle back. I mean, obviously, there's lots. Are
you saying rules. this is there is no time in X Generative Design and it's like 4D modeling or something? What are you saying, Andy?
That's exactly what I'm saying. The only time that exists is the update time in milliseconds on top of each node. And you're like,
the rebuild
what did I just do? This is going to take a while now because I just put in 6,000 nodes into this. So we'll see what happens.
So, and then was that the same tool that you use that both for the seat pattern and for the tire treads?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Same tool. And one was on SolidWorks geometry. The tire tread was actually solid geometry created in SolidWorks and brought into X Generative Design. And the seat was geometry created by Jason in X Shape, brought into X Generative Design. And then, but you can also generate geometry from scratch in X Generative Design. Right.
Like, okay. That was going to be my next question was with regards to the SolidWorks model, because I'm sure there's a lot of users out there that are using SolidWorks, and they're probably wondering the same thing, which is, can I then take my SolidWorks model, bring it in to X Generative Design, create this like beautiful pattern, using rules across nonlinear geometry, and then bring that model back into SolidWorks with the pattern intact.
Absolutely. And then you can run a simulation on it. You can put it inside of a core cavity and split a mold around it, right? Do a plastic simulation on it. So like you could absolutely like this comes back into SolidWorks, just like with X Shape, comes back into SolidWorks as watertight, solid geometry, right? Assuming
I would think there'd be a lot of uses for that.
But yeah.
I think there'd be a lot of uses for that kind of pattern design, like anything that's like anything that's like from textile. I'm thinking like like if you needed a glove, you know, like imagine an oven mitt that's maybe made out of silicon or a heat resistant material that has like a hex pattern across it. That'd be pretty tough to model in SolidWorks.
Yeah, definitely.
But
and it would be
kinda,
pretty darn easy to do in 3D Pattern Shape Creator, and then just toss it back into SolidWorks for all of the downstream stuff you might need. You know, like at that point, you could put it into your data management system. You can create a drawing. You can do a simulation. You can create a mold, right? All that good stuff.
And then with the wheels, the pattern looks a little bit more consistent. Did you need to use that tool for the wheels themselves for the rims, or were you able to do that with a more traditional circular pattern?
Yeah, so the rims are just done in X shape and then X design, right? So the rims are essentially like you can kind of look at that and go like, okay, there's 6 instances of this thing, right? Which is actually 12 instances. It's actually like I just did half of one of them in X shape, used symmetry in X shape,
Nice.
and then in X design did a circular pattern, right? And that's really all it is. There's some Boolean operations in there where I use the surface body to cut everything and then combine things back together. But pretty like for the average attendee at the SLUGME event, that's the easy stuff, right? Like everybody knows how to do that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, but the pattern, the cutting it in half, yeah. But the X shape stuff, right. I think it's a cool example of what we're looking at on screen right now. We're looking at 2 different examples of X shape, one in the swoopy, lofty entire car body, but then another in a much more localized region where you're looking at just the rim of the car and then turning that into a pattern. It kind of reminds me of, I know that a few years ago, SolidWorks Simulation released the capability to do the kind of generative design study, right? In simulation, where you're able to just apply a load and a fixture, and then you're able to get feedback indicating where you can remove material to still maintain the desired stresses, to not exceed the desired stresses. And a lot of times those models end up looking very similar to what you're showing here. And I would imagine that if you could kind of use those 2 tools in conjunction, you could come up with some, designs that are minimizing material, that are very aesthetically pleasing, very organic, in design, and yet are still maintaining the stress constraints.
There you go.
This was actually done inside of SolidWorks Topology Optimization, which is part of Simulation Professional. And then I brought it into X shape. Like I brought in the study results into X shape and then created the X shape portion of it around it just by, creating those bridges like we saw. It's really similar to what Jason did with the X frame on the car design, like the exoskeleton thing. Just bridge some stuff together. And I think I created a video of that, of myself doing it. I think it took like 15 minutes or something like that to do it. And then I like condensed the video down to like 4 minutes of modeling. But yeah, like in that amount of time, you create that geometry in like 15 minutes, and then I can spit it back into SolidWorks to do any other stuff that I need to do downstream, or I can kick it into X design and just keep doing the parametric stuff that you need to like finish everything up on the cloud. And either one, you can go use Print 3D to then make sure you're going to have right amount of supports, and then print it out. And that's how I got that printed part right there.
By the way, did anyone notice what just happened? Because Andy did this to me a couple times last night, where I gave him like a pop quiz while I was modeling, and he thought for like maybe like a split second and then gave the exact answer I was looking for, and I thought I was going to stump him. And now you're just talking about this scenario. He's like, oh yeah, let me pull this part off the shelf where I did exactly what you just described.
It's just that easy. Oh, and Andy, I see your shirt it was cropped. I didn't realize you were repping the Too Tall Toby shirt there. So thanks a lot, bro. Appreciate
absolutely,
it.
buddy.
Yeah, appreciate it. I wanted to say, just to before we get off this topic, like I just think that that's such an important workflow, and it can't be overstated. Like the ability to do the simulation work up front and then using that to drive the geometry of your study. It's a lot different than what we traditionally do. Traditionally, you would model this wheel up, you would hand it off to Shreyas or to Omar or somebody on the simulation team, and then they would tell you it's too weak, right? We ran our simulation study and there's not enough support. There's not enough this, not enough that. But, this design, you're able to just head that off. You're able to hand it off to that simulation team, knowing that, at least per your studies, this should be strong enough. And if you overbuild it a little bit to kind of account for some of that, all the better. And you're going to be in that much better shape when you hand it off to the simulation team, and they're going to be like, yeah, it works. Like passes all of our tests too. Imagine how much time that's going to save you to get your product to market when you don't need to do that cycle of you hand it to simulation team, they run the analysis, they tell you this needs to be changed, this needs to be changed. You got to redesign it now, maybe redo some of the mold design, like all the other downstream, effects of those changes can be omitted, right? Can be avoided by utilizing this workflow. So I just wanted to make sure that we make sure that the audience understands that workflow and how valuable that really can be. So cool. I know we're going to continue talking to Andy and Jordan here, but before we do, first of all, I wanted to ask you, Jordan, what were some things that you learned from Andy while watching him do the various pattern tools for this design, whether it was for the chair or for the tires or even some of the X-shaped stuff for the wheels?
To be honest, that was like my first time watching Andy do his thing from like beginning to end. He's looped me in and because we've collaborated on things in the past, and I've just sent him over some shapes and he threw some patterns on them, and then maybe he'd show me like a highlight or two. But just like the audience, I'm sure most of the audience, that was the first time seeing it done and explained real time as he was working, and it was a joy to watch. That's why we actually went over on time, because I just kept on asking all these questions, because I felt like an audience member with an unfair advantage to just interrupt them whenever I wanted to. So I apologize for that, but
I thought it was great. And we do have that video, the production team maybe could drop a link to where the people on the YouTube can watch that video. But the overtime video, I really enjoyed that. I got to watch it this morning.
Okay, cool.
You guys going overtime for a few minutes and letting us see kind of the conclusion of that design for the chair. So I encourage everybody out there to see that. And, to your initial point, Andy, I said it at the start, you are an absolute master. It's a treat to watch you work through this stuff. And you just do such a great job of explaining what you're doing. So if you're watching, if you haven't had a chance to go back and watch some of the earlier sessions where Andy and Jordan were talking about how they think through these challenges, I encourage you to do so. You just get to pick up so many great tips and tricks, and just being able to see it right from the start and kind of see the whole process is such an eye opener as to what types of capabilities we have with 3D modeling today. Stuff that wasn't even available just a few years ago. Now you can just get in there, do a few things here and there, and if you learn how to use the tools before you know it, you have a model ready to go out the door for production.
You bring up a great point too. Going back and watching that, I believe the desk had shown that 15-minute conclusion segment during the stream sometime last night. I didn't see it play, but once this stream is completely over, I assume it's just going to be like some wild 24-hour YouTube link that you can scroll through. I don't even know, but I know I've seen people do it before on YouTube, post the timestamps of when certain things start. So we'll make sure to fish through it and find out where that point is and annotate it so someone could jump right to it.
Good news is we're going to chop it up.
Well, with that, on that note, let's turn it over to the desk. Do you guys at the desk have any questions or comments for Jordan and for Andy with regards to this topic?
Well, I want to fill in the answer real quick. So Andy's add-on video, we did get a chance to fit that in, like you were saying. We stuck that in
hour 19 or something.
Yeah. We just had enough of a break in there that we fit it in. So it did get broadcast. So the length of this broadcast being 24, 26 hours, whatever it ends up being, it's past the 12-hour limit for YouTube. So we're not going to be able to go back and go through it at will like you normally would. So we're going to break it up into 1-hour sections, and we're going to put it on the SLUGME channel in the future after we've all had a chance to sleep.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Yes. Go sleep
get your rest
Great.
first. Yep.
Yeah, and we're getting some great chat here, great feedback in the chat here. Also, it looks like Kirby Downey in the chat is so close to the finish. It sounds like he's been going strong the whole time. So he is so excited about coming down that home stretch over the next hour, and he's got a little celebration planned out.
A little helper.
So congratulations, Kirby. And a huge shout out to some of the other, superstars in the chat. We got Joe Lance out there just tuning in, saying hi to everybody. Always a huge supporter of the users groups. We got Ray Folks out there, old friends of the, of the user group environment. Juan Chapa is out there. What's up, Juan? So lots of people in the chat saying hello. I wish I could read them all. I'm trying to keep up with them. But if you guys do have any questions for our presenters, let us know that as well. And Desk, do you guys have any other questions for Jordan and Andy?
Or maybe some shout outs for the viewers that have lasted the longest. You guys have been keeping track. Who has it been? I know I've seen a lot of Steve, the Central Texas, who I need a geography lesson from.
Yeah, put a 23 in the chat. If you've been here from the start, put a 23 in the chat for 23 hours. We'd love to find out who's been in here from the start. And I see Dulce's out there too.
I'm using the hourly surveys to track that, among other stats. And yes, we've got a tie right now between Steve Calvert and Dan Birchie, who've been in here.
Dan Birchie, from Cleveland. All right, represent.
And of course, as mentioned earlier, Todd has been here for the full time. No breaks for Todd. So congratulations.
Good job, Todd.
Aside from his bicycle breaks.
It's amazing. Been awake for about 34 hours.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Okay. Wow, look, we got some other people here. Yep, Steve has been in, Eric has been in, Dan Birchie has been in for 23 hours. So holy smokes, this is awesome.
That is so cool.
So let's talk a little bit, Jordan, and Andy, please stay on with us because I know you have a lot of experience in this domain as well. Let's talk a little bit about the chassis design, Jordan. So what exactly, how did you go about this? I mean, I know we saw in the video, what the process was of generating the 3D sketch and going in there and putting the structural members on. But along the way, what were some kind of surprises that you ran into with regards to designing this chassis? And have you ever done a design of a chassis like this before?
No, I haven't done a design of a chassis like this before. nothing close.
No. Okay. Fair enough.
As you know, I'm usually like the surfacing guy, the sub D X-shaped guy as well. But we had people better than me for those tasks on this project. So I jumped on the weldments, but I do use weldments a lot with all my construction projects and things like that. So I love it. And multi-body design is my absolute favorite modeling environment because I feel like you could do so much with it. It's the ultimate in context design environment. So it's just such a creative workflow. And I saw some other presentations on it too. It was great, but so with this, I lacked a lot of experience, and I'm sorry, like Shreyas couldn't be in on this particular wrap-up session because he is responsible. I mentioned it a couple times earlier. He's responsible for like any kind of direction and knowledge, industry knowledge going into this. I just pulled it all from him. I just interviewed him. I'm like, what's this thing called? What's that thing called? He's like, that's the front hoop. That's the main hoop, also called the roll hoop, and all these things. And figuring out like the idea of the strategy behind it. It's pretty basic, like as far as like, because I started like drawing cross members where they looked cool. Again, like I'm usually more concerned about the aesthetics of it than the function. And I'll let the simulation guys worry about that. But some of the key things is like for the cross members, you just want them intersecting at a node, and it makes perfect common sense because, I had some cross members intersecting at like the midpoint of another cross member. And he's like, what's going to happen when that car, like, when it starts to collapse, it's just going to bend that other cross member in half and completely collapse. So, the strongest point is to make them all meet at the nodes as much as possible. And
so I loved in the video the way that you, or in the presentation, the way that you and Shreyas were interacting with one another, kind of leaving each other video voicemails, both in your presentation and in his, when he was doing the simulation study. Shreyas is featured here in the upper left in this image. But it's interesting. So you were able to get on a web meeting with him and show him kind of what you came up with from your limited experience. And you're saying right away he was able to identify those weak points?
Right away. Yeah. I mean, it was probably more his experience just looking at it like, you dummy, why'd you do this? But I don't want to say that my design was sophisticated enough initially to actually require the simulation. It probably didn't even meet the first pass. Like he just said, make these changes. So we did go through a few revisions that weren't even broadcasted. If I showed you my first design, it would be kind of embarrassing. But yeah, so he guided me along, and the first revision was something that was at least respectable to be simulated. But no, the amazing thing about this, like when you look at other chassis that are like for other hypercars and race cars and things like that, I mentioned this during my session too, is like how cramped it is. It's like they spare no room for comfort whatsoever. And to be honest, it like while I was designing it and looking at the dimensions and calculating like how much room I'd actually have, like spare room for my legs and my feet and stuff like that, I didn't feel good about it. Like it made me feel guilty as I was designing it, because just thinking of someone sitting in this thing. But I mean, that's what they do. It's like, it's such an extreme design environment and, racing environment, and like everything is optimized to the nth degree to really like maximize speed, control, stability, and safety. It was really fun to be a part of.
So were you doing a lot of weight calculations as you were going through and doing the study in order to, continue that theme of maximizing efficiency and minimizing weight for speed?
So that was one of the things that I kind of left up to Shreyas. One of the interesting things I learned about the simulation portion of it is because I asked him that, I'm like, what structural members should I choose to get started with? And he said it didn't even matter, because what he would be doing is running the simulation on the sketch itself. And then from that, he could determine what schedule each of the tubing members should actually be.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was nice to have that responsibility lifted off my shoulders. It was more about just understanding the structure, and then the materials used on each one of those members would be determined after he did his thing.
So it sounds like, in working on this project and especially in working with Shreyas, you learned a lot. What would be some of like maybe the one or two biggest things that you learned that you really, like after you were done working on it, it really stuck with you?
Yeah, it was, I would say like the node thing, connect the members at the nodes whenever possible. The size.
And the node is the intersection?
Yes. Yeah. You want to connect them end to end, basically. Okay. So like right in the center of the screen where you see like the roll cage, like the vertical portion, and you see cross members coming into it. You see the horizontal members coming. They're all meeting at one little node, and that is right below. Perfect. Yep. That's where you want all those cross members to be intersecting, because they're all going to distribute the loads evenly across the rest of the members when there is any kind of impact or the torsional stiffness as we saw in his presentation as well. So those considerations were probably the biggest. And I think as far as modeling goes, the takeaway from my session was, it's not so much about applying the structural members and trimming them and all that stuff, because SolidWorks does that automatically, with the grouping inside of the structural member command and the order that I covered. As long as you do the ones that, everything else downstream needs to trim to it, and you do it in the order of operation that it would actually be manufactured, you don't even have to think about that stuff. The thought process. I thought
that was such a good tip, by the way. If anybody missed that, be sure to go back and check out Jordan's session on that. I thought that was so clutch. To realize that if you just are strategic with those first ones, that everything else will trim to them. It saves you so much of a challenge with downstream trimming.
Yeah, I mean, Toby and Andy, we're all like, we've all been through the ranks of the certification classes, right? Or tests. And I remember way back, it was all about like, oh my gosh, I got to use the trim extend tool, and you're worried about like which one you're trimming and the order and all that stuff. And since they updated that, and it's been a while since they did that, but it was such a big enhancement that I you still use it, especially when you have one structural member profile meeting with another structural member profile. You're going to have to manually trim that, but when you're using a lot of like common profiles, it's not even a thing anymore. So that's really cool. For sure.
Well, I mean, I want to thank you guys so much, Andy and Jordan. And of course, from here, Jordan was able to hand it off to Shreyas. They did some amazing back and forth talking about that torsional stiffness, talking about concerns that you're going to run into. And he was able to provide that feedback to you. You were able to change the design, hand it back to him, and then you were able to come up with this beautiful final solution. And then, of course, Omar was able to take the final body design and show us some of the higher end flow simulation that we can do, and how easy it was to set that up for multiple permutations, and even give us some tips and tricks. Like when you're on a design team and you're working with a flow simulation team, be sure to always contain your design in the same bounding box, the same location, the same XYZ location, because especially if it's an external study, it's almost like you're taking the designs and you're putting them into a wind tunnel. And if each design is located in the same spot, XYZ, then it's going to make it a much more consistent series of results, and you'll be able to, just more rapidly compare those results. So I thought it was so cool to see, the various advanced simulation tools that these guys were able to share with us, Shreyas and Omar. I wish they could have been here with us this morning, but I just want to thank everybody who worked on this project, especially these Keystone presentations. It's so rare that you're able to see an assembly of this level of complexity taken from start to finish. And I think you guys all worked together and did such a wonderful job with it. My hat is off to all of you. And I want to, at this point, turn it over to the desk, see if there's any other comments or thoughts or concerns from the desk. I know that we're winding down here in the last 5 minutes of the hour. And of course, I want to thank everybody in chat. We're getting some amazing feedback. I even see some connection being made here between Joe and Thomas, talking about maybe having a presenter at an upcoming users group. I thought that was a great presentation too by Tom on the references. I think that was like just before this presentation. So I thought that was really good too. But Jordan, Andy, thank you guys so much. Jason, who was here earlier, Omar and Shreyas, who are not here right now, but I just want to thank all you guys. Just did such a bang up job.
Shreyas actually just hit us up on the chat. He's traveling right now, but he's watching, he's following along, and he said, "What's up?"
Oh, Shreyas, man, it was so awesome. So awesome seeing you do your presentation, working with Jordan, going back and forth, seeing that, that kind of almost real world interaction between the design team and the simulation team, and learning, all the concerns that a simulation person will bring when they are looking at a design. That was just so eye-opening for me. I really enjoyed that interaction between you guys. And of course, now learning all the guidance you gave Jordan, kind of in the background, understanding how, what the appropriate terminology is and what the appropriate way is to come at a design like this. Thank you so much. Superstar all the way.
I will say, like, when we first came up with this concept, like what I was envisioning in my head is like something that will look cool and be fun, maybe even be kind of funny. But like when Shreyas joined the team and he came with all that knowledge, like when you're looking at this thing on the screen, it's substantial, and we put a lot of thought into it, and it's I feel like it wouldn't fall apart, at least if we put it on a racetrack.
That's good. It's a start.
Yeah, that's a good. You should pitch that to Shark Tank.
Yes.
Hey Toby, this is Dan.
Hey Dan, how you doing? My friend?
Just awesome, man. I mean, we're having a great time listening to you guys over here and just kind of reliving all these moments. And it got so entertaining as yesterday went on, and we went through Andy, making some crazy changes, doing some generative design on the tires. And like what we said yesterday was like, Andy almost had to hold himself back because he's like, I could really go crazy with this. We could make this thing next level nuts. But, at some point you kind of have to stop. And the banter and the casual conversation between the two of you, between Jordan and Andy while they're modeling, That I think for us really made the whole presentation. And then by the time it got to Jordan's 4 hours later, it was even like punchier, and you guys were like probably had been dealing with your kids for several hours, and like, you know, you were just like a whole nother level. And
go to bed.
Yeah, it was so relatable, and it just makes me think like that's what people want to see out here when they're trying to learn tools and you know, pick up on new tips and tricks. Toby, I think that's why you've been so successful over the years, because it's casual, it's approachable stuff. It's not overly scripted. Andy, you actually said in your session, we didn't even rehearse my session. We really should have. We really should have.
So we didn't guys, rehearse mine either. It was Andy saw it for the first time. I saw his for the first time. It was hilarious. But I'm telling you, like, if you guys like that style of presentation, Andy and I are doing this on a weekly, if not daily basis. Like when we're collaborating on models and stuff like that, we should just maybe randomly stream every once in a while. What we're working on.
Put a meeting invite.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, for sure.
I tell you what, if there was, your guys causing us to crack up laughing definitely worked a lot better than coffee.
Yes. Yeah. Very true.
That's awesome.
Good.
Well, it's hard to believe it's been 23 hours. I'm excited to see the desk wrap things up for the final hour. I want to thank you, of course, for putting this all together. Dan, Todd, Cam, Eric, such an amazing, you know, concept, and bringing it all together and organizing it, just, you know, executed to perfection. And, you know, like Jordan said, we came up with this, you know, a really cool design and a realistic design. And we were able to watch the team, you know, really kind of take this from zero to hero, if you will, from, you know, from the very beginning all the way through to a really nice final design. So congratulations to everyone, especially congratulations to the SLUGME team. This has just been awesome.